Everyone acts like the PSP was just a Monster Hunter, God of War, and GTA. And look, those are great games. No argument there, but here's what nobody tells you. The PSP had this entire second layer of RPGs that most people just walk right past, didn't even glance at them. Went straight to the action section and never looked back. And that's kind of a crime because some of these games are genuinely better than the titles that get 10 times the attention. So today, top 7 underrated PSP RPGs that nobody talks about. No spin-offs, no obvious picks, just overlooked, forgotten RPGs that deserves way more love. So why did nobody play this? Simple. Bad timing, small budgets, zero marketing, and the whole DS versus PSP console war was so loud that anything without a major franchise behind it just got drowned out. But here's the good news. These games are still out there, still playable on PPSPP right now, and a lot of them hold up really well. So let's fix that one game at a time. Okay. Number 7, and I need you to hear me out on this one. Brave Story, New Traveler. Looks like a kid's game at first glance. Colorful, animated style, cheerful. You play as an 11-year-old kid named Tatsuya. His friend Miki collapses from some mysterious illness. A strange voice gives him a chance to save her, but has to travel to a fantasy world called Vision and collect 5 gems to summon a goddess. Yeah, classic setup, nothing groundbreaking. But here's the thing, it's just really well made. The characters are likable, the story has actual heart. The team-up attacks in combat are fun to pull off. It's not trying to be complicated, and it knows exactly what it is, and it does it cleanly. The developer Game Republic also made the Genji games, so the production quality is noticeably higher and you expect from a handheld title with no big franchise name attached. It's not the deepest RPG on this list, but if you want something fun, comfortable, and genuinely charming, Brave Story is worth your time. Number 6 is where things start getting more interesting. Hexyz Force give you a choice right at the start. Pick Cecilia, a shrine maiden on the light side of the world, or pick Levant, a knight on the dark side. And this isn't just a cosmetic difference. Different protagonist means a completely different story, different characters, different experience. The world is called Burj, split between a side with no night and a side with no day. The whole game is built around this balance between creation and destruction. Combat runs on the force points. One currency handles everything: attacks, crafting, healing, mid-dungeon, all from the same pool. So you're always deciding whether to push hard now or save resources for later. Reviews back in the day called it average, and honestly fair. It doesn't reinvent anything, but sometimes you don't need innovation. You just need a solid RPG with a cool concept. Hexyz Force delivers that.
No problem.
Number 5. This one's port of a GBA game, and Riviera, the Promised Land is one of the most mechanically unusual JRPGs on the system. You play as Ain, a grim angel sent to the mystical land of Riviera. The story pulls from Norse mythology, Ragnarok, Yggdrasil, the whole setup. What makes Riviera different? Every weapon and item has limited uses. Use something too much and it breaks permanently, gone forever. That sounds brutal and it's kind of is, but it also makes every single fight feel like a real decision. You can't just spam your best skill every battle. You have to think about what actually worth burning. The PSP version added a full opening movie and cleaned up the overall experience compared to the original GBA release. It's a weird niche RPG that plays by its own rules, and that is exactly why it earns its spots here.
What's that?
That horrible scent.
Number 4. And this one has a wild history. Crimson Gem Saga is a South Korean RPG originally released in Korea as Astonisha Story 2 by the developer Ironos. Then Saga picked it up in Japan and released it as Garnet Chronicle. Then Atlus brought it to North America in 2009 as Crimson Gem Saga. 3 different teams, 3 different publishers, 1 game. And it's genuinely enjoyable. Classic turn-based RPG. Metacritic gave it a 75, which is for a no-budget niche RPG is actually pretty decent. Reviewers specifically called out the writing quality, the voice acting as highlights. The art is gorgeous too. Detailed hand-drawn sprites, lush environments that almost look painted. It looks better than it has any right to on a handheld. Story follows a guy named Killian who always feels like second best, getting pulled into a search for an artifact called the Crimson Gem. It doesn't take itself too seriously, which make it way more enjoyable to sit through. Clean, good-looking, low-stress RPG. If you want something that doesn't demand 80 hours from you, this is the pick.
Would you be interested in joining me? I could use a partner who's good with a sword. Who knows? Maybe we'll find a magic blade or some enchanted armor.
Top 3. Okay, this is where things get genuinely special. Yggdra Union is part of Sting Death Heaven series, and it actually a prequel to Riviera, which we just talked about. So if you play both, there are real payoff in the lore. You play as Yggdra, a 17-year-old princess who's lost her kingdom to an emperor. She teams up with the Villanor, a silver-haired thief, to build a resistance army and take it all back. The battle system is unlike anything else on PSP. It's card-based. Each card you play determines the skill used in combat and the terrain you're standing on affects how many resources you have. Moving across titles literally generates energy for your attacks, so positioning, movement, and resources all connect in this one system that sounds complicated but becomes all incredibly satisfying when it clicks. PSP version added a new character, full voice acting, and expanded story content compared to the original GBA release. It's a hard game. No sugarcoating that, but when you pull off a perfect run on a tough stage, genuinely one of the best feeling on the system.
What do you think of that, huh?
They're stronger than we thought.
Number 2, and we're back in the Depth Heaven universe because Sting just kept delivering. Gungnir is a tactical JRPG set in an empire called Gargandia. You follow Gilyo, a young rebel leader who stumbles onto a legendary demonic spear, the Gungnir. During a battle that should have killed him, the world has real weight to it. The Leonigat people are treated as lower-class citizens in their own country. Gilyo's resistance group, Esperanza, is fighting back against a system built to keep them down. It's not just a fantasy backdrop. There's a story with actual stakes. The battle systems runs on the tactics gouge, a time-based mechanic where your actions consume times on a share gouge terms moves within the same flow. It's not the usual your turn, my turn setup. You have to read the gouge and think ahead constantly. And the Norse mythology-inspired summon in her Char, Midgard, Snore, Monargard. Anyway, that Gilyo can unleash 4 massive field with effects look absolutely incredible. Here's the tragedy though. Gungnir came out in 2012. The beta was already out. Nobody was buying the new PSP games anymore. So this just got buried under the terrible timing. One of the most mechanically ambitious RPGs on the system, and it almost nobody played it. Before we get to number 1, 2 games that didn't make the list but are absolutely worth knowing about. Okay, before we go to the number 1 spot, please like and share and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. The number 1, and if you never heard of this, that's exactly the point. Growlancer Wayfarer of Time is the 4th entry in the Growlancer series. It's a tactical RPG with a free-range movement. You're not locked to a grid. You direct your character across the battlefield in real time, set up positions, manage skills, and make decisions that feel more like commanding a squad than playing standard JRPG. The story is serious, multiple factions, shifting alliance, character you actually care about, and over 40 possible endings, depending on the choice you make throughout the entire game, not just at the end throughout. And here's what makes it even more special. This was the very first time Western players got to experience this entry at all. It was never released outside Japan before this PSP version. Atlus brought it over remastered for the PSP widescreen with a ton of new content added. Then the brutal irony hit. It came out July 31, 2012, right when the PSP was basically on life support. The Vita was already out, practically nobody bought it physically, and it just disappeared. A deep, ambitious tactical RPG, first ever Western release, over 40 endings, dropped at the worst possible time. That's why it's number 1. So there you go. 7 PSP RPG that got buried, forgotten, or just never had the right time to reach the people who would gladden. The PSP was never just Monster Hunter and God of War. There was a whole secondary layer to the library. Tactical, weird, deeply crafted stuff that just didn't have the spotlight it deserved. But that's what emulation is for. These games are still out there, still playable, still good. If you played any of this, drop it in the comments, and if you think I missed one that should be on the list, let me know. Like the video if this helped you find something new to play, subscribe if you're into retro handle content. This is Gwim, and I'll see you on the next one.